My name is Emily. My parents are loving, and our family is well off. My dad is the chairman of a publicly listed company, and my mom is a piano teacher. They've been married for 20 years and have only one daughter, me.
Being an only child, they showered all their love on me. However, to prevent me from becoming spoiled, my mom sponsored a student from a poor region in the West when I was in elementary school. Her name was Grace.
Grace's parents passed away early, and she lived with her aunt. During winter and summer vacations, my mom would invite her to our home to play with me, buy her new clothes, and send her back with gifts.
In the summer of my third year in middle school, Grace was admitted to a prestigious high school in our city. My mom was thrilled and decided to support her through college, inviting her to live with us. On the last night of summer vacation, Grace and I shared a bed.
Emily, where did you get this?
I bought it at Disneyland a few days ago. It was just a few hundred. Do you want it, Grace? I can give it to you.
No, I was just asking. Sleep now.
I murmured in acknowledgement, closed my heavy eyelids, and drifted into sleep. Little did I know then, Grace wanted more than just my Stella Lou. She desired a life that could elevate her status. So, she set her sights on my dad, Robert. Everything changed on my 16th birthday. That day, I was out with friends as usual and returned home around 10 at night. But when I opened the door, I found the house brightly lit. My dad and mom were facing off, engaged in a heated argument. Suddenly, my dad slapped my mom across the face.
Mom!
I rushed over to support my stunned mom, bewildered by the sight of Grace and my dad. This was the first time such a serious argument had erupted in our home. What on earth had happened?
Helen, you've never given me a son all these years, and now that Grace is expecting, you're still unhappy? I've told you, Grace can be the second wife, and you remain the first. Don't be unreasonable.
Uncle Robert, don't blame Aunt Helen. This is all my fault.
Grace, in a white dress, looked frail and pitiful as she stepped forward to stop my dad, her voice soft and delicate.
You're carrying a child of the Roberts family. It's me who has wronged you.
Their affectionate display left me stunned. It took a few minutes for my mind to catch up. Grace had seduced my dad. And my dad hit my mom for her. She was a homewrecker.
Grace, you shameless woman! My mom supported your education, and you seduced my dad.
Blinded by rage, I rushed forward and slapped Grace with all my strength. My hand went numb from the impact, and Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor. Smack! The next second, my dad slapped me to the ground. My lip split and my head buzzed. My mom, who had been leaning against the wall, immediately threw herself over me.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll divorce you. Divorce.
Their affectionate display left me stunned. It took a few minutes for my mind to catch up. Grace had enticed my dad. And my dad had struck my mom because of her. She was a homewrecker.
Grace, you shameless woman! My mom supported your education, and you seduced my dad.
Blinded by rage, I rushed forward and slapped Grace with all my strength. My hand went numb from the impact, and Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor.
Ah!
The next second, my dad slapped me to the ground. My lip split and my head buzzed.
How dare you!
My mom, who had been leaning against the wall, immediately threw herself over me.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll divorce you. Divorce.
Narrator, tone, serious. She was so straightforward in asking me to leave first, clearly not wanting me to be part of their conversation. I had no choice but to leave. Narrator, tone, serious that day, I waited at home all afternoon. It wasn't until 8:30 p.m. that Mom came back. Narrator, tone, serious as soon as she got home, she took off her scarf. I quickly went to help her with her bag and brought her the porridge that had been kept warm.
Mom, tone, cheerful Emily, after I have your little brother, how about I send you to the United States?
Emily, tone, confused the United States?
Narrator, tone, serious I was a bit confused. Not long ago, she mentioned that our savings were insufficient and that it would take a couple of years before she could send me abroad.
Emily, tone, serious mom, are you planning to reconcile with Dad?
Narrator, tone, serious she chuckled softly, her expression gentle under the warm light as she ruffled my hair, not directly answering my question.
Mom, tone, hopeful Emily, I've come to realize that some things can only belong to you. Will you support Mom?
Narrator, tone, serious I didn't understand what she meant, but I understood her last sentence.
Emily, tone, serious of course, I will always stand by you, Mom.
Narrator, tone, serious but half a month later, in the afternoon, the police took me to the morgue. Narrator, tone, serious the morgue was freezing. I watched as the white sheet covering my mom was lifted, revealing a sight of red that overwhelmed my vision, a strong metallic smell filling my nostrils.
Emily, tone, terrified ugh.
Narrator, tone, serious the physiological reaction made me retch. The policewoman beside me quickly handed me a trash bag and supported me.
Policewoman, tone, serious miss, please, confirm the identity.
Narrator, tone, serious while retching, I saw the pearl necklace around my mom's neck. It was the birthday gift I had given her a month ago.
Emily, tone, sad it's my mom.
Narrator, tone, serious that was the last thing I said before losing consciousness. Narrator, tone, serious when I opened my eyes again, it was night.
Grandma, tone, sad it's a fully formed boy. Such a tragedy. Why did she have to go out?
Dad, tone, sad it's my fault, Helen. Emily is my daughter. I will take her home.
Nurse, tone, relieved Emily is awake.
Narrator, tone, serious I turned my head to see my dad and grandma. My dad had a stubble on his face.
Grandma, tone, sad Emily, your mom and brother are gone, but your dad is still here. Don't be sad.
Narrator, tone, serious seeing my dad's haggard appearance, my fragmented memory finally returned. Narrator, tone, serious this afternoon, the homeroom teacher received a call and rushed into the midterm exam room to pull me out and take me to the hospital. Narrator, tone, serious it was at the hospital that I learned my mom had been hit by a truck driven by a fatigued driver. She could have been saved, but the driver chose to run her over. Narrator, tone, serious one fatal hit, a one-time compensation, no need to bear future costs, and the driver would only serve a few years in prison. Narrator, tone, serious the truck's employer had already offered to compensate me with $50,000.
Emily, tone, sad $50,000. My mom's life was worth only $50,000.
Narrator, tone, serious I no longer had a mom. Narrator, tone, serious tears flowed down my nose again. I looked past Grandma and my dad and saw Grace standing at the door. Narrator, tone, serious she had lost weight and looked haggard, but her eyes. They held a hint of sympathy and mockery.
Emily, tone, sad dad, where are mom and my brother?
Narrator, tone, sad I had no way of knowing.
Dad, tone, sad Emily, your mom and brother are gone, but I'll take good care of you. Come home with me, okay?
Narrator, tone, sad home? Without my mom, how could it be called home?
Emily, tone, sad okay.
Narrator, tone, serious mom had fought for me while she was alive. How could I let her down now?
Grace, tone, insincere Emily, don't worry. I'll take care of you just like Aunt Helen did. You can consider me your mom from now on.
Narrator, tone, serious her words made me sick.
Emily, tone, serious consider her my mom? Let's see if she has the luck for that.
Narrator, tone, serious after handling my mom's affairs, I returned to the family home, only to find changes had been made. Narrator, tone, serious first, Aunt May, who had worked for us for over a decade, was gone, replaced by a stranger. Grace said she had hired a new nanny and housekeeper. Narrator, tone, serious then, my music room was taken over. The redwood door was painted white, and shell wind chimes hung in front of it.
Grace, tone, friendly Emily, that's your sister's room now.
Narrator, tone, serious I ignored her and turned to my dad, the real decision maker.
Emily, tone, serious where will I practice piano now? Mom said she wanted to send me to Berkeley.
Dad, tone, serious I'll find another room for you to use as a music room, okay?
Narrator, tone, serious he now had another daughter. Even if he wasn't very excited about it, she was still his blood.
Emily, tone, serious fine.
Narrator, tone, relieved she seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and my dad smiled in satisfaction, pointing out another room for my music practice. But that room had been a storage room. Narrator, tone, serious when I opened the door, a cloud of dust hit me, and I quickly stepped back.
Emily, tone, serious dad, this room needs to be cleaned.
Narrator, tone, serious my dad hadn't expected the storage room to be so dusty. Covering his mouth and nose, he coughed and was about to call Aunt Lily, the new housekeeper.
Emily, tone, serious Aunt Lily has to take care of my sister. A child's skin is sensitive, and if Aunt Lily gets dusty, it could cause an allergic reaction.
Narrator, tone, serious this reason was quite convincing. My dad nodded in understanding.
Dad, tone, serious you're right, Emily. I'll call someone to clean it.
Emily, tone, serious mom used to help me clean my room. Why not let Aunt Grace help me?
Narrator, tone, serious Grace was taken aback by being called aunt and immediately wanted to refuse.
Grace, tone, unfriendly, that's not possible.
Narrator, tone, serious of course, she had worked hard to escape from a life of chores and farm work. How could she be willing to help me clean?
Emily, tone, serious but mom used to help me clean. Aunt Grace, didn't you say you'd take care of me like my mom did? Mom would always make sure everything was in order, even when teaching others to play the piano.
Narrator, tone, serious my dad nudged Grace's shoulder.
Dad, tone, serious Helen's hands were for playing the piano. Your hands have done farm work since childhood. What's the problem? Help Emily set up the room. Got it?
Narrator, tone, serious he clearly wanted me to accept Grace. Under his words, Grace reluctantly agreed with a grimace. Narrator, tone, relieved my dad left, satisfied. He was busy with work and didn't have much time to stay at home. Narrator, tone, serious I watched Grace clean from noon until afternoon. I saw her carrying buckets and basins in and out until the sun set, and the storage room was finally clean. Their affectionate display left me stunned. Grace had won over my dad. And he had even harmed my mom because of her.
Grace, you ungrateful woman. My mom supported your education, and you repay her by seducing my dad?
Blinded by rage, I rushed forward and slapped Grace with all my strength. My hand went numb from the impact, and Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor.
Mac.
The next second, my dad slapped me to the ground. My lips split, and my head buzzed.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll leave you. Divorce.
Their affectionate display left me stunned. It took a few minutes for my mind to catch up. Grace had charmed my dad. And my dad had struck my mom for her. She was a homewrecker.
Grace, you shameless woman. My mom supported your education, and you seduced my dad.
Blinded by rage, I rushed forward and slapped Grace with all my strength. My hand went numb from the impact, and Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor.
Mac.
The next second, my dad slapped me to the ground. My lips split, and my head buzzed. My mom, who had been leaning against the wall, immediately threw herself over me.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll leave you. I'll leave.
Narrator, tone, in pain my head was knocked to the side. A sharp pain shot through my left ear, followed by a piercing ringing. I immediately covered my ear. Mom wasn't here, no one would protect me now. Narrator, tone, relieved suddenly, I heard footsteps. Aunt May rushed to my side.
Aunt May, tone, serious oh my. Sir, how could you hit Emily like that? Mrs. always said that for someone who practices music, the ears and throat are the most important. Look at this.
Narrator, tone, serious my dad froze for a moment, then frowned. He took out a wad of cash from his wallet and handed it to Aunt May.
Dad, tone, serious take her to the hospital.
Narrator, tone, sad he helped Grace up and went back to their room. I knew I had lost today.
Aunt May, tone, tearful Emily, why do you always have to fight with her?
Emily, tone, sad it's okay, Aunt May. I wasn't planning to pursue music anyway.
Narrator, tone, serious ever since I found out Grace was expecting, I had decided to give up on music. My dad wanted me to study finance, so I would do as he wished.
Aunt May, tone, tearful you poor child. Oh my. Your hand is hurt too.
Narrator, tone, serious Aunt May gently held my hand, which had been accidentally cut by a fruit knife, her heart aching.
Emily, tone, serious let's go to the hospital.
Narrator, tone, determined I took a deep breath, holding back my tears. Grace wouldn't always win. Sooner or later, she would pay dearly for what she had done. Narrator, tone, serious during Grace's pregnancy, perhaps to provide a better life for his son, my dad became increasingly busy with work, often only coming home once or twice a month, all for the branch office in the neighboring province. Narrator, tone, serious while the branch office's business was booming, the tension between Grace and me grew even more intense. Narrator, tone, sad Aunt May, who had repeatedly stood up for me, was dismissed during Grace's late pregnancy. Before leaving, Aunt May handed me an envelope filled with money.
Aunt May, tone, serious your college entrance exams are in 2 months. Use this money to buy something nutritious. Don't let yourself suffer.
Narrator, tone, serious I knew Aunt May's story. She was from a neighboring city and had a daughter who passed away due to her husband's negligence. After that, she divorced him and came to this city, where my mom hired her. She had watched me grow up and treated me like her own daughter.
Emily, tone, hopeful, don't worry, you'll be back.
Narrator, tone, serious. I accepted the money without refusing her kindness. In the months of clashing with Grace, she would throw tantrums and even get physical whenever things didn't go her way. Whenever I tried to fight back, Grandma, who was there to take care of her, would stop me, even pushing me away and forbidding Aunt May from giving me food. So, I went hungry several times. Narrator, tone, determined, but it didn't matter. Sooner or later, they would pay for this.
Aunt May, tone, serious. Oh. I'm looking forward to that day. Emily, you need to watch the time when you do your homework. Sometimes, I see your room light on at 2 or 3 in the morning. Take care of your health.
Narrator, tone, serious. I took Aunt May's advice to heart. After seeing her off, I returned home and immediately saw Grace, her belly swollen, eating cherries. At $200 a pound, Grace had been eating 1 or 2 pounds of cherries every day for the past 2 weeks, her fingernails stained red.
Grace, tone, unfriendly, go, get me a glass of water.
Narrator, tone, serious. Seeing me enter, she naturally pointed to the water glass on the coffee table, treating me like a servant. Narrator, tone, serious. I ignored her, but she called out.
Grace, tone, unfriendly, Emily, do you not want this month's allowance?
Narrator, tone, serious. I stopped and looked back at her with a mocking smile.
Emily, tone, unfriendly Aunt Grace, you might have had a hard life before, but you should know that a girl can have savings too.
Narrator, tone, serious. With that, I walked away, leaving Grace fuming behind me.
Grace, tone, shouting, Emily, you just wait!
On the eve of the college entrance exams, I finally understood what she meant by those words. Grace's due date was approaching, and I didn't want to clash with her. But on the day before the exams, when I returned home, I saw Aunt Lily carrying a large bag of trash at the door.
Emily.
Although Aunt Lily was hired by Grace, she was a kind person and greeted me warmly.
What are these?
I asked as I changed my shoes. Aunt Lily usually took out the trash in the evening, but it was still morning. And it was pouring rain outside. Why was she taking out the trash now?
Madam said these things are no longer needed.
Things Grace didn't want? I had to see what they were. I stopped changing my shoes and walked over to Aunt Lily, opening the trash bag. Inside were several music scores and photo frames. They were my mom's photos and the music scores she had written for me. Seeing these things, I snatched the bag and dumped its contents on the ground: music scores, photos, scarves. All were items my mom had left for me, which I had kept in my room. How did Aunt Lily find them and throw them out? Looking closer, I was filled with rage and nearly fainted. My mom's face had been cut out of the photo frames. I quickly flipped through the music scores, and the notes my mom had painstakingly written were scribbled over, ruined. Many pages were even torn out. And the scarf was shredded to pieces.
Don't throw these away. Give them back to me.
I stuffed everything back into the trash bag and, without changing my shoes, stormed into the villa. Inside, I saw Grace standing on the stairs, chatting and laughing with my dad while Grandma stood nearby, holding a maternity bag. Without thinking, I walked up to Grace and grabbed her collar.
Did you do this?
She was startled, and my dad quickly pulled my hand away.
Emily, what's gotten into you?
Looking at his anxious face, I trembled as I dumped the music scores and photos in front of him, showing him Grace's handiwork.
I kept these things in my room. Why did you touch them? Huh?
Seeing the items, my dad's expression changed. He looked at Grace.
It's my fault for not telling Emily in advance. But I had my reasons. I've been having nightmares about Aunt Helen recently, and it made me uneasy, so I consulted a master. The master said that having Aunt Helen's belongings in the house was causing the nightmares. It's not good for the baby either, so
She was clever. Mentioning the baby softened my dad's expression immediately.
Your Aunt Grace didn't mean any harm. It's for your brother's sake. There are plenty of handwritten music scores, I'll buy you some new ones. And you have photos with your mom on your phone, right? Just print them out.
His blatant favoritism left me breathless and trembling with anger.
Why? Why? Why did my mom have to be insulted by them even after her passing? The biggest legacy my mom left in this house is me.
You destroyed my mom's belongings. Are you afraid of retribution? Afraid my mom will come back to haunt you at night? I slapped Grace hard, using so much force that my arm went numb. Grace screamed, blood trickling from her mouth, and clutched her stomach in pain. Terrified that something might happen to his precious son, my dad's eyes widened, and he pushed me away.
Are you crazy?
Narrator, tone, stunned. Their affectionate display left me speechless. Grace had won over my father. And my dad had struck my mom because of her. She was a homewrecker.
Grace, you shameless woman. My mom supported your education, and you seduced my dad.
Blinded by rage, Emily rushed forward and slapped Grace with all her strength. Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor.
Ah! My tooth!
The next second, her father, Robert, slapped Emily to the ground. Her lips split and her head buzzed.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll leave you. Divorce.
Chris smiled slightly, holding a shopping basket filled with snacks he bought to support my business.
Why don't you tally these up for me?
These snacks were tied to my commission. After ringing them up at the register, I grabbed a big bowl of Odin and sat down at a table with Chris. As we ate Odin and sipped sparkling wine, it started to rain heavily outside, just like when I first reunited with Chris. But now, I was no longer as disheveled as I was back then.
Are you planning to go back to the Song family tomorrow? Do you need a ride?
No need to trouble you. They're hosting a full-month celebration at a hotel tomorrow. I'll make sure Dad has a double celebration.
He understood my intention and shook his head helplessly.
As you wish, just be safe.
Don't worry. When you come back next time, we'll meet at the top.
Grace's son's full-month celebration was grand. Probably because, in his middle age, Dad had both a young wife and a beloved son, he chose the city's most luxurious hotel for the celebration and invited many guests. When I walked into the banquet hall, I was greeted by a cacophony of congratulations.
Dad.
Hearing my voice, Dad turned around, stunned for a moment, then quickly walked over.
Emily? Why are you dressed like this? Where have you been this past month?
I was wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts, and my floral sandals were bought from a discount store, which didn't quite match the glamorous setting. Grace, holding the baby, also approached me with concern.
Emily, how could you run away from home in a fit of anger and not answer our calls? Do you know how worried your dad and I were? A young girl shouldn't be out alone.
Her words made Dad's face darken. A girl being out of touch with her family was seen as improper in their eyes.
I was working at a convenience store. I know it was my fault last time. I shouldn't have slapped you, Aunt Grace, just because you cut up Mom's photos and then ran away without contacting you. I won't do it again.
My sarcastic words caught the attention of the guests, and Grace's face changed. She had climbed her way up as a homewrecker, and many people looked down on her. She valued her reputation the most, so I decided to ruin it.
Emily! What are you saying?
Just as Dad was about to get angry, a group of people stormed into the banquet hall. The two people leading the group wore glasses and looked scholarly.
Which one of you is Emily?
Emily, did you cause trouble outside? Today is your brother's full month celebration. How could you do this?
Teachers, I am Emily.
Dad was about to lose his temper, but the group reached us first.
Are you the top scorer in this year's college entrance exam, Emily?
Yes, I am Emily. This is my dad.
Upon confirmation, the male teacher leading the group beamed and shook Dad's hand.
Hello, Mr. Song. I'm from the Peking University admissions office.
The female teacher wasn't far behind, signaling to someone behind her to hand Dad a bouquet of sunflowers.
Hello, sir. I'm from the Tsinghua University admissions office. Congratulations on Emily's excellent performance in the college entrance exam. This is my congratulatory gift.
Amid the guests' surprised and envious gazes, I saw Dad's expression change from anger to joy, his face beaming with pride. Grace, however, looked like she was biting down on broken glass. I felt a sense of satisfaction. With the arrival of the admissions office from Tsinghua University, my dad's vanity was greatly satisfied. After the full moon celebration and the traditional ceremony, he wanted to discuss my future with the admissions officers. Under his influence, I chose Tsinghua University. After everything was settled, I returned to the family home. When I arrived, the two children were already asleep, and Grace was sitting on the sofa.
Truly worthy of being my child. Emily, you've really made your dad proud this time.
To achieve greatness, one must endure hardships. Aunt Helen helped me a lot, and I owe her my gratitude.
My dad clearly knew what Grace had done to me. He laughed heartily and then said to Grace,
Apologize to Emily. Let bygones be bygones. Now that we have a son, and Emily is going to Tsinghua, we need her help in the company.
Since her pregnancy, Grace had never been treated this way. But because of my dad, she had to lower her head.
I'm sorry.
I smiled and nodded in acceptance.
Seeing her unwilling gaze, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Can't handle this? What will you do in the future? I will make you regret everything you've done. Unknowingly, 6 years flew by, and I returned as a well-educated overseas graduate. Upon returning, my dad arranged for me to intern at the company. But before heading to the company, I went home.
Sister, I missed you so much.
As soon as I opened the door, a girl in a princess dress jumped into my arms, her big, grape-like eyes sparkling with joy.
I missed you too, Sophie. Look, I brought you something.
I handed her a deluxe Barbie doll gift box. She hugged me happily and then ran off to open her gift. During this time, Grace, who was sitting on the sofa with her son Jack, teaching him English on the iPad, didn't move. She was like this. Once she had a son, she ignored Sophie. To her, Jack was the real treasure. Sophie was just an accessory.
Oh, Emily, you're back?
As I took out a gift for Jack, my dad came out of the study, holding a cup of tea. Over the years, I had won scholarships annually and was later recommended for overseas study. In my dad's social circle, I had been a source of pride for him. As a result, his attitude towards me improved significantly.
Jack, I brought you a gift. Want to open it?
Being the son, Jack was spoiled by the family and didn't even respect his biological sister, let alone me.
I don't want your gift. You bought it with our family's money. You can't use our family's money to buy things anymore.
He had been instilled with the idea that the entire family belonged to him. It wasn't surprising he said that. I glanced at my dad's darkening expression and forced an awkward smile.
Is that so? All right.
Jack, how can you talk to your sister like that? Apologize to her.
When it came to family education, my dad had been influenced by my mom. Despite his indulgence, he still had basic principles.
Jack, tone, crying she's nothing but spilled water now. She's not my sister. Dad, you're awful. You're so awful.
Narrator, tone, serious with that, Jack's face changed, and he ran upstairs crying.
Grace, tone, helpless Robert. Why are you scolding Jack?
Narrator, tone, serious Grace looked at my dad helplessly, then glared at me before following Jack upstairs. Faced with this scene, my dad was momentarily speechless with anger. Finally, he awkwardly said to me,
Dad, tone, awkward, you've been away at school for years. Your brother isn't familiar with you. Spend more time at home, and he'll come around. Don't take it to heart.
Emily, tone, understanding it's okay, Dad. I'm the older sister, so I should be more accommodating. Even though Mom's brother isn't here anymore, Jack is still my little brother.
Narrator, tone, sad mentioning my late mom, my dad's expression turned melancholic.
Dad, tone, melancholic. If your mom hadn't had that accident, she would have taught your brother well. He wouldn't be like Jack.
Narrator, tone, serious. He still held regret for the son who was never born.
Emily, tone, cheerful. All right, let's not talk about sad things. Dad, how are you doing with your medication? You can't sneak sweets from the kitchen anymore, it's bad for your health.
Narrator, tone, serious. Due to business engagements, my dad had developed serious health issues over the years. I put down the toy in my hand and took out a beautifully packaged box of tea from my bag.
Emily, tone, friendly. This is a special tea from a friend's hometown. It helps with blood sugar.
Dad, tone, please, my dear daughter knows how to take care of me. You should start at the company tomorrow, intern for a while, and once you're familiar with the work, I'll set you up with your own office.
Narrator, tone, cheerful. Hearing this, I immediately clung to my dad's arm with a delighted expression.
Emily, tone, excited. Thank you, Dad.
Narrator, tone, serious. Upon joining the company, I was assigned to the planning department as a regular intern. Since I had deliberately concealed my identity, no one knew I was the chairman's daughter, including my supervisor, Ms. Jane.
Miss Jane, tone, serious Emily, this is Lily, also an intern. You two should help each other out.
Narrator, tone, serious. Following Ms. Jane's words, I glanced at the woman in front of me. She had wavy chestnut hair, red lips, black eyeliner, and curled lashes, wearing a poorly made knockoff Chanel.
Lily, tone, cheerful. Okay, Ms. Jane. Hi, Emily, I'm Lily.
Narrator, tone, serious. She extended her hand to me. Lily? Grace's cousin? I had only learned about her 6 months ago during a phone call with my dad. Grace had a cousin who was graduating from college this year. They were very close, and Grace wanted my dad to arrange a job for her. My dad had agreed. I didn't expect to run into her now. What a coincidence. Ms. Jane, satisfied with her performance, gave a few more instructions before leaving. As soon as Ms. Jane left, Lily dropped her act, glancing at me dismissively.
Lily, tone, unfriendly. Your bag looks nice. Where did you get it?
Narrator, tone, serious. I looked at the limited edition Birkin in my hand, which I had bought with money from my dad. Because I made him proud, he was in a good mood. And when he was in a good mood, asking for tens of thousands to buy a bag wasn't an issue. The more I could spend his money, the better. If I didn't spend it, Grace would. In response to Lily's question, I smiled faintly. It's a replica, but it's very realistic. Want me to push you?
No thanks, I don't buy fakes. I'm not one of those people with an inflated sense of vanity. I only use the real thing.
Only the real thing? I glanced at the slightly crooked Dior logo on her bag and smiled silently. Just like Grace. I didn't say anything else and returned to my desk. As soon as I sat down, Chris called.
Back already? Want me to take you out to celebrate?
He sounded in a good mood. I arranged my succulent plant and readily agreed. Sure. Chris booked a new restaurant. Since I finished my work quickly, I left early and arrived at the restaurant ahead of time. Because of this, Lily made a snide comment in front of the manager as I was leaving.
We're here to learn, not just to wait for the end of the day.
What nonsense! I come to work just to wait for the end of the day. To my surprise, as soon as I sat down, I saw Lily walking into the restaurant with a middle-aged man with thinning hair. I quickly raised the menu to cover my face. Well, why isn't she staying at the office until 10:30 p.m. to learn? Instead, she's out dining with an older man? And that older man looks familiar. He seemed to be a board member who had given me a gift at my elementary school graduation. I watched them sit not far from me.
What are you looking at?
Suddenly, a voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see Chris squinting at me, tapping the table with his fingers. I put down the menu. Watching a two-faced person's double life. Chris shook his head with a smile and took the menu from my hand to order. I didn't need to give any input because he ordered all my favorite dishes.
Recently, our company and your father's company will be collaborating. I hope to see you then.
After graduating from university, he didn't take over the family business but started his own. In 5 years, he became a rising star in the business world. Don't worry, you'll definitely see me then. I clinked my glass with his, my tone confident. Chris drove me home afterward. Before entering the house, I tidied up my appearance. As soon as I reached my room, I noticed the door was ajar. Seeing the crayon marks on the door, I had a bad feeling. I pushed the door open to find my makeup scattered on the floor and crayon marks all over the bed. The beautifully crafted box on my bedside table had been opened. The culprit was holding a candy from the box, asking nonchalantly.
Hey, what's this?
Suppressing my anger, I closed the door and snatched the box back. This is for Dad. If he eats it, he'll grant my wish. You can't touch it. Jack's eyes widened.
This house is mine. Give it to me.
He reached out to grab it. I pushed him to the ground. If you dare cry! I picked up the scissors from the bedside table, glaring at him. If you cry, I'll cut your mouth. Terrified by my expression, Jack immediately fell silent, got up, and ran out of the room. Looking at the mess, I put the candy back in the box. So tired. But everything was about to end soon. As long as Chris found that person, everything would be over. Maybe it was because there couldn't be two queens in one department, or perhaps every time Lily tried to undermine me, I would retaliate. She started to become increasingly hostile towards me. A week ago, Ms. Jane assigned a task to the interns in our department.
Whoever writes the best proposal for a collaboration with Chris's company will be offered a permanent position.
Everyone else was working hard, except for Lily, who seemed clueless. I had known for a long time that she had coasted through her 4 years of college, failing several courses. If it weren't for Grace arranging her entry into the company, she wouldn't have found a job at all. The night before the deadline, as the workday ended, I typed the last word, shut down my computer, and left the office. Before leaving, I noticed Grace glancing repeatedly at my workstation. The next day in the conference room, Grace was the first to present her proposal. She displayed my proposal on the screen, only with a different cover. The content was identical. The managers looked pleased. I yawned and took a sip of my iced Americano. What an idiot. I wouldn't even let someone like her complete the internship. When it was my turn, I brought my laptop and, instead of opening the proposal, I accessed my work email. There, I had the proposal I had written 3 days earlier, which I had sent to my email as evidence.
This is the proposal I wrote 3 days ago. I made a few changes last night. Grace has already presented it for me.
The room erupted.
You're lying. I wrote the proposal myself. I finished it a week ago. You stole my proposal.
Honestly, I had always doubted the intelligence of the Zhang family.
Do you have the original document?
Instead of calming down, Grace shouted.
I wrote it, but my computer got a virus, so I used Emily's. I didn't expect her to be so petty.
As an intern, stealing someone else's work and feeling no shame. I think Lily's internship should be terminated. What do you think, Ms. Jane?
Ms. Jane nodded. Lily seemed to regain her composure, crossing her arms and sneering.
Fire me? My cousin-in-law is the chairman. You think you can fire me? Dream on, especially you. Emily, you don't even have $200 on you. What's wrong with borrowing your proposal? Do you think you can negotiate deals looking like a country bumpkin?
She grabbed her branded bag and walked out.
Emily, your proposal is the best. You'll handle this collaboration. As for her, don't take her words to heart.
Don't worry, Ms. Jane. I'll do my best.
After the meeting, I called Chris and told him about Lily. As the call was about to end, Chris mentioned something.
There's some movement from Director 1 at your company. You should warn your father to be careful.
Director 1? Isn't that the person who had dinner with Lily? That night, when I returned home, I noticed a pair of unfamiliar yet familiar shoes at the entrance. Pink Miu Miu ballet flats. Lily had been showing them off to the other interns just a few days ago. When I entered the living room, Lily was sitting on the couch, playing with Jack, while Grace was peeling a banana for him.
Oh, you're back. No greeting? This is your cousin.
Lily's smile vanished the moment she saw me, as if she'd seen a ghost.
Really? My mom told me I had a cousin once, but unfortunately, she passed away. So when did she crawl out of the grave? How come I didn't know?
Lily's face fell even more, but she seemed to understand who I was and didn't dare say anything.
Aunt Lily, I've already eaten outside, so I won't be coming down for dinner.
Chris had taken me out to celebrate my promotion and treated me to dinner, so I had no desire to sit at the same table as Lily. But what was she doing at my house? I got my answer later that night when I went downstairs for a drink of water and heard a door creak open. I didn't turn on the light and hid in the shadows, watching Lily sneak out of the study. I pulled out my phone and started recording. After my promotion, Lily also got promoted. When I asked my dad about it, Grace, who was feeding Jack, rolled her eyes at me.
No matter what, Lily is family. That incident with the project was a misunderstanding because she didn't know your identity. Who knew you went by Emily at the company?
Family?
I took a spoonful of soup and lowered my head.
You're right. She is family.
What kind of shocking things could this family do? I didn't have to wait long. A major incident occurred at the company. Chairman Wen sold all his shares and started a new company. He even won a bid against our company using a proposal that had been prepared 3 months earlier. When we learned about this, Ms. Jane called us all to a meeting. This was a big deal. How could a top-secret proposal be leaked? Who was the mole? As soon as I entered the meeting room, I saw my dad sitting at the head of the table, surrounded by several managers, looking furious.
Who did this?
He slammed the table and roared. Grace was beside him, trying to calm him down. She held a nominal position as the chairman's assistant and occasionally came to the company. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lily trying to stay calm, but her face was pale. I had my answer. Now was the time.
I know who did it. Ms. Jane, could you please turn on the screen? I have a video to show everyone.
Ms. Jane hesitated for a moment, then turned on the screen after getting my dad's approval. I cast the video from my phone onto the screen. It showed Lily sneaking out of the study that night.
I got up for a drink of water that night and saw Lily coming out of the study. But since she's Grace's cousin, I didn't say anything. After all, Grace said Lily is family and is here to help.
My words were like adding fuel to the fire. My dad's brows furrowed as he watched the video replaying Lily's sneaky behavior.
Call the police. Take her to the station for questioning.
Their affectionate display left me stunned. It took a few minutes for my mind to catch up. Grace had swayed my dad's affections. And my dad had turned against my mom for her. She was a homewrecker.
Grace, you shameless woman. My mom supported your education, and you charmed my dad.
Blinded by rage, I rushed forward and slapped Grace with all my strength. My hand went numb from the impact, and Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor.
Mac.
The next second, my dad slapped me to the ground. My lips split, and my head buzzed. My mom, who had been leaning against the wall, immediately threw herself over me.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll leave you. Divorce.
Their affectionate display left me stunned. It took a few minutes for my mind to catch up. Grace had seduced my dad. And my dad struck my mom for her. She was a homewrecker.
Grace, you shameless woman. My mom supported your education, and you seduced my dad.
Blinded by rage, I rushed forward and slapped Grace with all my strength. My hand went numb from the impact, and Grace screamed, spitting out a tooth onto the floor.
Ah!
The next second, my dad slapped me to the ground. My lips split, and my head buzzed.
How dare you!
My mom, who had been leaning against the wall, immediately threw herself over me, screaming.
Robert, if you touch my daughter again, I'll divorce you. Divorce.
A gentle breeze blew as my dad, lying in the hospital bed, turned red with anger.
All the company shares are now under my name. Dad, you're old and no longer fit to handle the company's affairs. Don't worry, I've found the best retirement home in the city for you. You don't need to come home.
Without waiting for a response, I turned and left, but I heard my dad's hoarse cries.
Emily, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I paused, wiped away my tears, and walked away resolutely. At the door, I was pulled into an embrace.
Emily, don't cry.
Chris reached out to wipe my tears, his eyes full of concern.
I'm now the new chairwoman of the song group. I'm not that high school girl anymore. Don't treat me like a child, Mr. Chu.
Chris was taken aback by my words, then suddenly laughed.
Got it, my chairwoman song.
A year after the incident with Lily, everything had settled. Grace was convicted of hiring a hitman. Given the severity of the crime, she was sentenced to 20 years, and the driver received 10 years. Jack. I sent him back to Grace's hometown to be raised by her parents. As for Sophie, although she was completely innocent, the events of my birthday night haunted me. I sent her to an international boarding school and bought a house nearby, where Aunt Lily continued to take care of her. My dad passed away in the retirement home 3 months ago. He had a heart attack. The nurse who tried to save him said he kept saying sorry until the end. Grandma lost her spirit because of Jack and returned to her hometown. I sold the old villa and bought the apartment where Mom and I used to live. I brought Aunt May back to live with me, letting her clean when she felt like it and play cards with the other elderly ladies in the neighborhood. As for me,
My chairwoman's song, are you still asleep? Hurry up and touch up your makeup. You need to take a photo with Mr. Chu for the company newsletter.
Ms. Jane, now my assistant, fussed over me all day. I yawned and put on a stern face, applying concealer to my collarbone and touching up my lipstick. Chris was like a dog, biting everywhere last night.
All right, let's go.
Ms. Jane pulled me towards the conference room once I finished my makeup. When I opened the door, Chris was already there in a custom-made silver gray suit. He turned around at the sound and smiled at me.
Chairwoman song is here.
His voice was soft. I walked up to him in my 6 centimeters red-bottomed heels, took his hand, and said,
I'm here.
The peak we once spoke of reaching together had finally been achieved. Fortunately, the person before me was still the same.